This is episode 571. And today we're going to be talking about 9 ways to combat fear. And as normal, there are probably multitude of ways to combat fear, but I have found through my experience and experience working with my clients that these are some of the most effective ways of combating fear. Because fear gets the best of all of us, whether it's fear of failure, fear of success, fear of jumping off a bungee cord, fear of a lion, whatever. Fear is out there. It's part of life. All of us have experienced fear at some point in our lives, and it can be real stumbling block. It holds us back from being truly successful, whether that might be giving a presentation at work, asking somebody out on a date, asking for a raise. Fear stops us from a lot of things that if we work through it, we could have a much different life. Fear can't hold you back forever if you don't let it. So that is the key, is not letting it hold you back. And there are several ways to overcome fear. And here are my top 9. What you need first is separate reality from perception. Ask yourself what's going on. Locate the facts and place them over your feelings. Most of the time, we overreact to situations that really don't warrant it just because that's the condition and response that we have. But the perception is, oh my gosh, and our heart starts racing and this happens and we get so uptight. But if we just look at the reality, look at the data, look at the facts, look at what's there, we can often combat the fear. And this is one that most likely we project fear into the future. We create a story about something that we think might happen, and we think it's the truth, when in reality it's the farthest thing from the truth. So take time and separate that reality from your perception. Identify the triggers. Again, we've been conditioned in response since we've been young to have fear. So figure out what it is in a situation that triggers you. Learn to identify it, and it'll help you combat it. It could be getting up and in public and speaking because you don't want to be laughed at, because you don't want to be made a fool, because you think you're a fool. All those things are triggers, but you can identify and work through them. That other people have stood up and made mistakes if they gave a speech. Other people asked someone else out and they said no. Other people have asked for a raise and said no. And when you can identify the triggers, then you can work with a coach like me in minimizing the response of those triggers. But if we just keep being controlled by the triggers, those emotions get bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon those triggers become significant anchors that hold us back from achieving our greatness. Number 3, know where fear lives in your body. A lot of time fear takes over physically, right? It affects different people in different ways, and identifying if and how it affects your physical body, and do the work to take care of your body and take care of that. Another thing is we often mislabel fear. So we feel something in our body, we think it's fear, we label it as fear, but in reality it could be excitement. I use the analogy of waiting to go online for a roller coaster. Some people love it, some people aren't, but they're both experiencing very similar emotions in their body. One labels it one way, one labels it the other way. So when fear lives in your body, it may live in your upper chest where you shallow breathe. It may live in your heart where your heart starts beating. It may be your hands start to clench up tight. But when you know where fear lives in your body, you can, let's say it's in your hands. You open your hands, you shake your hands out, and then the fear dissipates because there's a physical and emotional attachment, right? Mind, body, soul. So if you know where fear lives in your body, you can massage it out, for lack of a better word, and that fear will dissipate as well. Practice gratitude. Wow. This practice gratitude, I don't know if you've noticed by listening to other podcasts, but it comes up a lot in combating fear, mental strength, living a successful life. But every day, yes, list out one, two, 3 things you are grateful and thankful for. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. See, gratitude and the feeling of gratitude helps shift the mind into a positive light, which over time overcomes fear. And you can do this in the beginning of the day or the end of the day, depending if you expect to find a stressful day ahead of you. Perhaps find this gratitude list in the beginning. If you've already had a stressful day, then have your gratitude list at the end. But either way, every day, just a couple of things. You're grateful that your home's safe. You're grateful that you have food. You're grateful that you have electricity. Whatever that is, just keep being grateful. Listen to your inner voice. Wow. Our inner voice is kind of a small little whisper, and our ego is a big yelling machine. And the fear comes from the ego, and our little voice is our soul. So monitor your inner conversations. If you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself, right? So speak positively to yourself and remind yourself of your strengths. This is often we the strengths and this positive conversation can come from our soul. The ego wants to keep us from hurting ourselves. So it yells and screams to get our attention. Don't do that. Don't ask that person out. Don't ask for a raise. You'll get fired. Don't ask for that person out. You'll be slapped. Don't stand up and give a speech. They'll laugh at you. But the inner voice says, it's okay. You've done this before. You've survived this far. So you want to listen to the inner voice, the whisper of your voice, the whisper of your soul, and keep moving in that direction. Number 6, create a new association, right? So remind yourself that the feeling and this moment will pass. Focus on the positive outcome of this situation rather than the scary in between. I know this used to help me a lot with CrossFit. We'd be right in the beginning part of a WOD, and I would go, oh my gosh, and I would get, uptight. And it might not have been fear, but an emotion came up. And then what I would think about is the end of it and how good I'd feel once I pushed through that resistance. And when I felt that, then I just got this burst of energy and I was able to push through the WOD. This can be the same thing when you're facing fear, is that when you face it, and actually when you face that fear and create a new association, the fear will diminish and it'll be gone. You'll be wondering, what the heck were you afraid of in the first place? So number 7, right? Look at the glass as half full. Perception goes back to the first one, perception from reality. Perception is a very powerful thing. And how you feel about your situation detects how you respond. So think positively and you'll give yourself a much better chance of success. Whatever the situation is, when you can look at the positive part of it, not be Pollyanna rose colored glasses, but there is a positive part. You get a flat tire in the highway. Well, at least all of them weren't flat, or at least you weren't hurt, or at least the weather's good to change the tire, something around that. But when you look at the positive part of the situation, your perception actually changes, your mood changes, and that fearful or anxiety or anxious state will absolutely disappear. Practice breathing. This is so important. Breath really is a centering point for all of us. Breath helps center your body. When you stop breathing, your heart stops breathing and you die. So there's these different types of breathing exercises. But to put it in simplistic terms, you want to exhale more longer than you inhale. Because when you exhale, you have your parasympathetic, your rest and digest system kicks in. When you inhale, your sympathetic, your fight or flight comes in. So if you're fearful, you're probably shallow breathing, a lot of quick inhales, which create this abundance of energy around fear, where you can just breathe out and then just breathe in a little bit and breathe out. The more you breathe out, think about it. When you're startled, you take a big breath in, right? When you're startled, when somebody scares you, even kidding around or whatever. And when that moment has passed, you go, oh. So you have this big breath out. So being aware. So when you have this trigger that comes up, we talked about identifying the trigger. When you know this trigger is going to come up, you start breathing deep. More exhale, longer exhale than inhale. And this, after time, 1 or 2, 3 minutes, you'll feel yourself completely relaxed. Number 9, Create safe space. So when you feel safe and secure, there's no room for fear. Absolutely none. Find somewhere safe where you can retreat to when ill feelings begin. Whether this is a real place such as, a spirit room, I used to call it for myself, a bedroom, or a place in your mind such as the beach. They call it the happy place, right? But this sense of comfort will soothe you, allow you to face your fear. Obviously, if you're at work, you can't get up and go someplace, but you can close your eyes for a few minutes. Think of that beautiful beach in Hawaii or Costa Rica or those beautiful mountains in the Swiss Alps, wherever that might be, and just stay there and focus on that. And your body will think it's real and you'll start to calm down. If you're at home or if you come home from work and you need to decompress, make sure you use the same area to decompress, because if you're on the couch watching TV, your emotions go all over the place between anger, this and that, and happiness, depending on what show you're watching. And when you come home, there's an anchor there, so your body doesn't know what to do. But if you have a chair or someplace separate where you come in from a stressful day, put on some quiet music, sit there, and that is your safe place. That's your decompression chamber. Every time you sit there, it'll become easier and easier and easier to decompress. If you're lucky enough to have a spare room in your house or apartment, you can make it what I used to call a spirit room. If not, you can use some special blankets or tapestries over a specific chair that you only use when you decompress. But as best you can, avoid using common areas such as your bed or the couch you watch TV on. You can use separate chairs, but use those exclusively for your decompression chamber. So there we have it. Those are nine ways to combat fear. Obviously, there's a lot of others. One of the biggest ways to combat fear is hire a coach, whether it's me or someone else. But keep in mind, right, that these are just 9 strategies. Not everything works for everyone, but just pick one and work on it for a couple of days, maybe a week, but it's a great place to start. So start implementing these techniques or one or two of them into your life, and don't let fear hold you back from reaching your goals and your highest potential this year, this month, this week, or this day. If you'd like to get the show notes for this podcast, you can bump over to warriormindcoach.com. And while you're over there, you can find some other podcasts, some other blog posts, and some other interesting material to help you with your mental strength and personal success. And while you're on the internet, please follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest under Warrior Mind Coach.